Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Today Podcast. Today's show is being recorded on January 28th, 2019. On this show we'll be going in depth and discussing Microsoft Flow with Jon Levesque of the Microsoft Flow team. Before we do, we have a few housekeeping things to go over. First, I want to let you guys know that we have moved podcast hosts. We are no longer on Anchor.fm. We are now on Omni Studio. We've set up 301 redirects, so if you're subscribed to Microsoft Today on your favorite podcast platform, you likely do not need to do anything. Just check out Microsoft Today on Twitter. Head to the newly launched website, msft.today, to get links to all the latest platforms, or search on your favorite podcast platform. We are on 14 different podcast platforms, so you should be able to find us pretty much everywhere. And if not, hit up our RSS feed for the podcast. And with that, you should be able to add that to whatever podcast player you prefer. Next, I just want to apologize for the lack of updates over the last nearly 2 weeks now since our last episode, and that is for a few reasons. First, I've been sick. Second, I've had a really crazy workload at my day job. Third, we did a lot of things at the back end, moving the podcast host. And fourth, we've launched our website. Yes, go to msft.today, and there you will find all of the latest and greatest news about everything Microsoft. We have accumulated and acquired the most thorough listing of all official Microsoft blogs. So if you want a one-stop shop for all things Microsoft, go to msft.today. And finally, I want to let you know that we hope to get back to the at least 2 episodes a week. So look for shorter episodes, easier to digest episodes on short topics or apps or solutions and things like that to go along with our long interviews and our in-depth coverages and podcasts with tons of information. I just want to let you guys know before we get started, I hope you are checking out our show notes. You can get those at msft.today/podcast. I take meticulous notes for all of our shows. If you need any information from our shows, there's everything you could ever want to know about that show, including links and suggestions and resources and definitions and the questions we went over and all those sorts of things. So head to msft.today/podcast. For the longer podcasts like today, I do at least 4 to 6 hours of research before we even get in the recording and post-processing and all those sorts of things. And so hopefully you're utilizing those resources, and let me know if you do, so I will continue to do that. And now we're going to head into the interview that I had with Jon Levesque of the Microsoft Flow team. Thank you so much to Jon and to the Microsoft Flow team and everything they do. Hopefully you guys get a better understanding what Microsoft Flow is and how you can use it, and Microsoft's long-term plans and visions for Microsoft Flow. We're going to be talking about Microsoft Flow for years to come, I have no doubt. Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Microsoft Today. I'm joined today by Jon from the Microsoft Flow team, and Jon's going to tell us everything he wants to tell us about Microsoft Flow. We can hopefully share the love with the Flow and the Power Platform. If you follow me on Twitter, Brad Grew, and you follow the Microsoft Today, you know that I'm a huge fan of Microsoft Flow, and so the point of this podcast is to kind of be evangelists for the Microsoft Flow and kind of discuss the things that I'm currently doing, and then Jon's working down the pipe, and then we'll go from there. And so, Jon, thanks for joining me, and thanks for, this is 2.0 try for, we had some technical difficulties last week, so thanks for the reschedule. But, so yeah, just want to dive in and give people kind of a quick overview of yourself and like your role at Microsoft on the Flow team, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, right on. Thank you for having me. Version 2.0, here we go. I'm Jon Levesque. I'm a senior program manager on the Microsoft Flow team. I would say, though, that that's just my official title. I actually operate as a product evangelist. That's more fun, and so that's usually how I introduce myself. What that means is I focus on everything around Flow. So there's a bunch of feature PMs, and they build the product itself. Then I handle everything around it, all the blogging, all the social media, the community, the learning material, all of the speaking, and all of that goodness. I get to do all the fun stuff, basically. And so, yeah, so I'm here today. Brad asked me to come. I am honored to be on the show. Big fan. And so, yes, I want to answer all your questions about Flow and about me.
Awesome. So, I'd like to just get started with the folks that I'm speaking to before we dive into the nitty gritty. And so you do have a lot of things going on in your life as far as work and business and extracurricular activities, things like your YouTube channel, your website, your podcast. You also have a podcast, JSYK Podcast, right? And then JonLevesque.com, so JonLevesque.com, and then at Jon Levesque, and then if you search for him on YouTube, you'll find him on there and LinkedIn as well. So, let's dive into your podcast. You're pretty early in the thing like us, and so I think you're a couple months in. I've listened to, I think, 4 of your episodes, and go and give an overview of that, and hopefully get you some more listeners.
My dude, I appreciate that. 4 episodes. I think you've listened to more than anyone else, probably. I don't think my girlfriend even listened to that many. It's been a super fun thing. Me and Kent Weir, who used to be on the Flow team, we did a bunch of videos together. If you've been following my channel, if not, Kent was a coworker. We did a bunch of tutorial videos and things, and he left the team and went and took another opportunity closer to home back in Canada. And so we decided we wanted to still do something together, and so we started the podcast. So it's called the JSYK, Just So You Know Podcast. And we talk about technology of all kinds, from consumer to business. We talk about entrepreneurship, and we talk about business building. It's kind of a few different segments. One of them is the news. We then have a main discussion, and then our final segment we call the complaint department, where we kind of put some company that's wronged us on blast. It's been pretty fun. I think we have 6 episodes out so far. I really like podcasting. I mean, I like talking, so podcasting was a natural fit for me.
I know that feeling, bro. I like to hear the sound of my own voice. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. You either have it or you don't. And
Yep.
but hopefully, like I just know, because I came across you from your YouTube channel before, because I just started my new position with work for a company called JMT, which is a construction management company, and I've been in IT for 20 plus years. I was going to be an engineer, mechanical engineer. But I graduated in late '90s from high school, and I went to school to be an engineer, and I was an engineer's assistant, during the summers and things like that. And then, like, one of my buddies' brothers graduated from college and became a technology recruiter right before Y2K, and he's like, "Hey, I get you guys. We were all computer nerds. We played Quake 2 and CS 1.6, well, even way before CS 1.6. So we were those type of geeks, we were." And so we were like, yeah, we'll do it. We can make $20-25 an hour as a 19-year-old poor college student. Then I'll go back to school. And then it never happened. And so I lucked into a gig at Johnson Space Center in Houston. That was a couple years after that. And then I kind of just fell bass backwards, as we say, into the corporate IT environment. And this is the first position where I'm not actually part of the IT team. So I actually spent a little over right at 4 years at Microsoft as a PFE. So I was a premier field engineer for the platforms. So I did Windows Server, started with Active Directory, health checks, that sort of thing. So I know a little bit about the culture within Microsoft, although that was the Balmer days. Satya we trust hashtag I use all the time. So things have changed within Microsoft. Oh yeah, well, my stock prices, I'm loving it. So I've just been in IT ever since. I love pretty much everything about Microsoft. I've run Microsoft blogs for years, and again, finally got off my butt, I think, kind of like you, and it's like, hey, let's start a podcast. I do like your podcast because it's like me. It's kind of basically, for the folks that don't know, it's kind of like you have kind of 2 geeks sitting there talking about the things they're passionate about, which is really cool. I think there's one episode, I'm not going to get too much into. There was a lot of iPhone talk, which I'm not a fan of, but other than that, I miss Windows Phone so much. But no, I'm just kidding. It's a great podcast. So we'll have the link in the show notes, guys.
You're the only one. They're about to kill Windows Phone, and you will shed the only tear, I think.
No, we were a passionate few. But so let's get into your life at Microsoft. How long have you been at Microsoft? Is this your first role at Microsoft? Did you move? I know Microsoft, you move around a lot, if you want to. So just kind of give us a background on that.
Actually, so this is my, 4th team at Microsoft, and I've been here for about 5 years. So I started out on a product called Windows App Studio, which was Microsoft's first foray into the no-code, low-code space. Yep. Basically, you could go to a website similar to like Flow. You could pull around some pieces of data, plug in some information, and it would spit out a UWP app for you, which was a universal Windows package. So you could go and load it on the store and make a Windows Phone app of your own. Eventually, before the product's demise, we actually changed it to universal, so you could deploy a Windows Phone and Windows app at the same time. So that was their first foray in that space, and I set up a community for them and did really well. And I was actually a vendor. I worked for a full-time employee in that position and just nailed it for him. So when he moved on to his next position, the Project Sienna team came to me. Many of you guys probably don't know who Project Sienna is or was. It's now Power Apps. But way back in the day, it was called Project Sienna. And so they came to me and said, hey, you did a great job over here for Windows App Studio. We're looking to start our own community, and we'd love for you to come do it for us. So I started there, created the Project Sienna community. The product then evolved into Power Apps, and I killed what we had for Project Sienna and started the Power Apps community. I then left the product and went to a startup for a while, about 10 months, a drone startup out of China, which I love drones, and so it was a very cool adventure. But I just realized that I didn't enjoy the company. It was a Chinese-run company, and the way that their management style was just not for me. I'm a very outspoken guy. I have lots of ideas, and so it just didn't fit. So I left and I came back to Microsoft to join the Flow team, and so that's my fourth product here at Microsoft. Been on the Flow team now for about 2 years.
Awesome. About 2 years. So I guess you're kind of you came on right at the launch.
It was 3 months old when I came on.
That's awesome. And so I guess that kind of like it will help us pivot into discussing Flow now and what Flow is and how it came about and like the Microsoft's long-term vision for Flow. But I kind of like rethought our notes that I sent you last week a little bit, but it just kind of, instead of just giving like an introduction to Flow, talk about the Power Platform itself, since Flow is part of this Power Platform. And the last week, really, the Power Platform's got a lot of play within the media. I think ZDNet and a couple of other places picked up on it that this is the year of the Power Platform at Microsoft, and like that's the future. So for those that don't know, the Power Platform, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going by what I know. The Power Platform is basically, it started with Dynamics 365, and then in the tool sets that lie on top of that and utilize those services like Power BI, Power Apps, and Flow, correct?
So that is the current vision of it. I would say that what you just described is the Power Platform now. Didn't start that way, actually. No. It started out as Power BI, and on its own, it was kind of that's where it got its origination. And then once Power Apps started and joined Power BI, they became the Power Platform. Then Flow was birthed out of Power Apps and out of Logic Apps and kind of became its own thing and became the third piece of the platform. And then most recently, it was decided that those pieces should reside as part of Dynamics, which then Dynamics kind of came into the fold with the Power Platform, and now we are the up level of Dynamics. And so that's kind of how it formed into what it is now.
So were the business process flows originally going to happen, or do they say, hey, now that we're part of Dynamics, let's plug into Dynamics and the power of Dynamics with the business process flows?
So business process flows were actually a piece of Dynamics already that Flow kind of took and inherited and made a piece of itself. Kind of took it, because when it was in Dynamics, it could only connect to Dynamics. It was just a Dynamics workflow tool, and it couldn't do much else. Bringing it into Flow now gives it all that power to connect to those other services as well as Dynamics. So it wasn't an original vision. It was something that we actually very recently kind of took on as part of the Flow platform.
Okay, that's interesting to hear. It's because it's one of those things, Dynamics, for those that don't know what Dynamics is, it's basically an ERP solution. It's an all-in-one business pipeline and process solution. So you plug in everything from, like my company, we do our timesheets in there, we do our expenses in there, we do our client expensing, all that stuff takes place within Dynamics. And then it's great to see the business process flows. I'm trying to sell that to the company at the time, because there is an additional licensing for that, but that I found from your videos has helped me on YouTube a lot with that, actually. So it's cool. I'm doing some proof of concepts and things like that. So now I guess people are like, if people don't know what we're talking about with Flow and Power Apps and all that kind of stuff now. So, but we're going kind of that rabbit hole. So can you just give us like a 2-minute elevator pitch or your opening, intro to Flow 101, and so for our listeners who aren't familiar with what it is?
Absolutely. So Flow is a workflow automation tool. And the simplest way I can describe it so that everyone can understand what it is you have things that you do in your job all the time, right? And so for a personal productivity example of that, I might get an email every week, and that email could contain a spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, there is some data, and that data has to be taken out and transferred to some other system so that a report can be made or timesheets can be done or whatever it is, right? We all have those situations. So what if you could identify that thing you do over and over again, and instead of continuing to do it over and over again, you built a flow that did it for you. So that's how I can explain it from the personal productivity standpoint of I can replace the things I do repeatedly with a flow. But then there's also this whole other side of it for enterprise connectivity and productivity where, for instance, I have systems that traditionally do not talk to each other, right? I have this dynamic CRM system hanging out over here. And then I have like, a SharePoint list connected to a form that someone else might be using in the field to collect information on leads. And then they have to go back to the office and take that information out of the list and put it into Dynamics. Well, what if instead of that, we just built a flow that said when a new contact is added to this list, go ahead and create a lead in Dynamics with that same information, right? And so you can very quickly see how I can become more productive with it, and how I can also connect my systems in a more efficient way to be able to use it. And I think those are the two sides of flow and its two major uses, my productivity and my enterprise productivity.
Yeah, and so kind of building on that for people who maybe are familiar with another service that came before it, but it's quite limited, is the IFTTT, or so if this, then that. So basically you set up a flow. If I receive an email from my electric company, send me a text message reminder to pay my bill. That type of, you can get that granular and that basic, but then with Flow, it plugs into every part of Office 365 and especially SharePoint. Most organizations who live within the Microsoft ecosystem, their data resides in Office 365 or OneDrive for Business or Dynamics, Azure. Or Azure or Dynamics 365, and so there's connectors, custom connectors for all of these services that you can add to Flow and do all of these amazing things. And it's not just Microsoft. There's literally connectors for everything from MailChimp to Twitter to Facebook to just literally, there's thousands of them, I think, at this point, and there's more and more added every day. And just think of like the way the APIs are plugged into things like Slack or Microsoft Teams or Office 365 that extend that. You can extend to Flow and Power Apps and the old Power Apps platform with that. And so I personally started getting into this in October because, again, like I'm not in the IT space anymore. I'm more in the data science / systems architecture space. And so with my company, they were like, we have these people we have our customers who are mainly government customers, and they use like P6 for their project management. And they use scheduling out here and there, and it's not all the Microsoft ecosystem. So we're trying to get all this data into a centralized place. And for us, most of the time, that's SharePoint. And then utilizing SharePoint lists and using Microsoft Flow, so whenever this happens, update this and let this person build Power BI dashboards off of these Microsoft lists, these SharePoint lists and those sorts of things. So Flow is literally it's glue. Yeah, well, I wanted to talk, this is where I want to get to the discussion as we go along, but I can't imagine trying to support a product like Flow because the possibilities are literally limitless. And so your customers are doing stuff every day that you've never even thought of, usage scenarios and things like that. And then now that you can add scripting and other parts into it, and like the whole Flow and Azure Logic Apps and Power BI, it's phenomenal. And so I recommend anyone who's never used Flow just go to flow.microsoft.com. You can sign up for a personal account, right? And then just give it a shot and try to do those personal things. So if and when you check in on Foursquare, back that up to your Google Drive or something like that. There's people who have already built these templates in there that are literally 1, 2, 3 clicks. You add your credentials and boom, they're working. Like I use one for the NOAA weather alerts. So I use it off my Geo on my phone, and then also just live in Houston, Texas. So anytime there's Houston, Texas, I get a weather alert, a text message. Boom, there's a weather alert from the National Weather Service. Be prepared, that sort of thing. And so there's just really cool things you can do. And so the power really is, just to give you guys some of the connectors, Office 365, Dynamics, the whole Microsoft suite basically, and then Basecamp, Bitbucket, GitHub, Zendesk, Yammer, YouTube, Planner, Power BI, Jira, Jira for DevOps and that sort of thing, and Medium, the blog platform, G Suite. There's literally the things you can build are really limitless.
Yep, absolutely. I think that's one of our hugest values. Like, I think we have 245 or 246 connectors now, and we put out 3 to 5 every single week. It's one of the biggest values of Flow, and you're right, it is one of the biggest problems because we can do so much that there is always these niche cases of, I want to do this very specific thing, and none of us have built that, right? And so it definitely is a continuous challenge to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with the how I came across you was out those niche cases, right? I was like, I'm trying to do this. There's no documented thing on that, so let me just look for Flow and Power BI people, and Power Apps people on Twitter. And so I just Twitter blast, and then like the community, and then you guys, especially everybody who's part of the team, they're just super responsive because you guys know. I think you're as passionate about it as we are, right? Like we just see this, we all see the little, once we see the possibilities, the little, the hamster wheel in our brain just starts spinning 1,000 miles an hour, thinking of all the cool things we can do to make our lives easier and our business processes easier and things like that. So people, just like if you have a process flow in SharePoint, like a new hire comes on and they need access to this and that and this, and there's an approval chain that goes down the line. You can do all of that drag and drop now from a centralized repository that has connectors to thousands of different services and features.
And you mentioned approvals, which is a huge thing in Flow. Our approval center is phenomenal. I call it lazy approvals because it's everywhere. So you get an email with your approval. You get a notification inside of the Flow approval center. Mm-hmm. And if you have the mobile app installed, you can actually get a push notification to the mobile app and deal with your approvals right there in the mobile app as well. And so no matter where I am, no matter where I'm dealing with this, I can be very quickly dealing with these approvals. And so if that's a big part of your business, I would say Flow is absolutely 100% for you.
Yeah, anything approval based. And there is a great one of the training little modules they take you through. For those that don't know, it is a vacation request form. So basically a user goes and asks for a vacation request, and that approval flow goes off. And like it's really cool because you can do that approval in multiple ways. Like you said, you can do it from the mobile app. You could literally just from a link within the email, and it all takes place in there. You can leave notes. You can even deny and leave feedback, and they can go. There's the whole logic behind it is still there that you can build, and you can build it as complex as you want. It's pretty crazy because like. My cohorts and myself, we kind of we start with a simple idea, and then by the time we're done, our flows are these big complex behemoths, and it's like you kind of need a mind map to search it because you just think, oh, it's doing this one job, let's just make it do this but you can also create 100 different flows that do 100 different small things, or one giant flow that does everything. We've kind of fallen into the smaller flows just because it's easier to maintain and things like that, and it's drag and drop for folks that have no coding experience. Like people who have no coding experience, this makes sense to them after like a 5 or 10 minute, but there is the logic that goes behind it. So the people who are developers, you do have your language, your Azure logic language in the back end that you don't have to use.
Workflow definition language, it's called.
Workflow definition. Yeah.
Yep. And it's if you are a developer, you're very, very used to this language. You'd be able to pick it up very quickly. All the operators and syntax and things that you're used to are there. So it's very easy for developers and non-developers alike to pick up.
It's kind of discussed how you get these feedback from these niche cases, or these cases where these usage scenarios where you would never even think of using it that way. And then you go, wow, that'd be a great thing to offer to people. What is like the ramp up time and the development and the push out time, from idea to deployment for those things? Because that's the thing I just want to tell people now. If you search for Flow, like if you're having issues with Flow and things like that, always do filter your search results by like 3 to 6 months, because how Flow worked a year ago is not how it works today. And so just keep that in mind, because they do keep releasing stuff constantly that improve this functionality and make it much, much easier. And so I've always wondered, like, because there is the Flow feedback form where you can go and you can request different features and different connectors and those sorts of things. What's kind of that process that goes on behind the scenes?
So typically what will happen is, let's say you go to the feedback, the ideas forum, we call it, and you leave this idea like, oh, I want the Teams connector to have this new action. And let's say that, that idea gains some good support. Let's say, 300 votes, 299 other people come and say, yeah, we want that too. So what will happen when you cross the 100 vote mark is we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, is this something that is lining up with what we can do, what we believe we should do, and we'll look at what it costs. And so it'll go under review. Once something is under review, we'll then kind of line it up against all of our other priorities. So we do planning right now in February. We're about to start planning for April. We'll then work from April to October to release everything we said we're going to release in April. Then in August, we start planning for October. And so then we, in October, say, hey, we're going to release all this stuff until April. And then the cycle just repeats itself. Now, that's our planning, right? We kind of plan about 6 months in advance, but the way it actually works is we deploy every week. So along the path, we have new updates coming out every week, bug fixes, new features, things that we promised 4 months ago, right? We just roll those out week after week after week. So it really depends. Now, I have seen ideas get submitted and get under review and get put into action within the same 6 months. More likely, though, when you put in an idea, it's not going to gain all the support it needs right away. It's going to be a tiered effect. It's going to be timed, and it really depends on how much you promote it. But over time, that will climb its way up. And once we review it and then plan it, it's about, somewhere in that next 6 month cycle where it will come out.
And obviously during this time, with all the user submitted ideas, you're rolling out your own long-term plan, not public ideas and improvements. And obviously I think working with third parties to help them get their connectors and those sorts of things developed. And so that kind of brings in the next thing. When it comes to the connectors,
let me pause you for 1 sec. I do want to say one thing that I'm really, really proud of in that prior topic. So you said that we are also building things that we plan ourselves, which is very true. But I wanted to point out, since I have joined the team, one of the mandates that I've said that we will do is we will build a customer-centric product. And so I am actually very proud to say that every 6 out of 10 ideas that actually, 6 out of 10 features that make it into the product start in the community. And so we actually weight what our users ask for in the community above what we think should be in the product. 6 out of 10 features come from you guys. 4 out of 10 come from us.
That brings up a good point, being that I do have a kind of an idea of the things that go on the enterprise. So with the enterprise, how does I guess they just go through the back channel with their TAM and those sorts of things and work through it that way? Or is it really just one of those things, because I would think that if one of the larger companies like Walmart came out and said, we need this workflow to do this specific thing, is there like a back channel for them, or is it just something?
So typically to this point, I have treated them just like every other user. And I've said, oh, you need something? Cool, go to the ideas forum. We are actually building a new mechanism that is a back channel for large sized customers to have a direct feedback system and say, we have enabled this and we're blocked on this and all that good stuff, so that they can get a different level of help through a different feedback channel. So it is something I think that up until this point have not done a great job at specializing or doing anything special, I guess, for those types of customers. They've kind of just been treated like every other customer. But I am working on a new system for that, because I do see the value in giving those partners and customers their own dedicated feedback channel so that they feel heard.
Yeah, and I just want to mention to folks, it's not like I'm saying that giving a back door to the businesses, but Microsoft's enterprise agreements that they have with their business customers, for those that don't know, is extremely important to their business model. And a lot of the improvements and things from their feedback, and this is what I did as a PFE for nearly 4 years at Microsoft, was basically I went on site for a couple of days up to a couple of weeks and worked with their customers, got feedback and so there's a constant back and forth based upon business case uses. How a small mom and pop shop or a medium-sized business uses a tool like Flow is going to be completely different than a global organization with 100,000 employees, and so the usage cases are just a vast different way. And so there is a support system in those back channels that these that these users are used to, especially the engineers. I've been that engineer who had a TAM. So that's why I mentioned, I just wanted to bring that up for people who aren't familiar with the enterprise side of Microsoft support. And so it is cool that there will be options for both, because I have no doubt that many of the people who listen to this live on the IT side. And so it's good to know, is like, if we have something that, man, would really make our lives much easier, maybe we could work with Microsoft to make that happen, whether that's from that perspective, because I came from the services division as a PFE, and I know that there's PFEs and technical experts that are these technical liaisons for the corporations. When it comes to Power Apps and Microsoft Flow, is that still something you've kind of just built it and seen who's going to come?
Yeah, pretty much. I think you pretty much nailed it. It's build it and see who comes.
That's awesome. That's a unique, just from my experience and knowing the history of internally at Microsoft, I don't think that would have happened 10 years ago within Microsoft, right? I think management probably saw the potential of this and goes, holy crap, we can do some amazing things. But you crowdsource it, right? You crowdsource the ideas, and it just makes life much easier. And you build the framework, and you let the people build the awesome things. And we talk about that on this podcast all the time, that Microsoft, the common commercials, empower, and Satya preaches it, empower, empower, empower. And they know that they kind of sell themselves if they get their foot on the door and they make a good impression. And so
it's the democratization, right? I think that's really what they're going after, is like, Windows Phone, how do we democratize app development, right? And now Power Apps, how do we democratize app development? And now Flow, how do we democratize workflow and automation? Power BI, how do we democratize reporting and transformation? And right, and it's this genius idea of, if we get enough groundswell, the enterprise has to pay attention to us. Mm-hmm. And so our strategy, like Power BI created this strategy. They didn't go and talk to IT. They talked to the users. They said, what do you need? What can we build for you? And eventually so many users used it that the enterprise world had to pay attention. IT had to pay attention, right? And so I think we're really trying to do the same thing. We're talking to the users. What is it that you need? And I think that's why up to this point, we've done it the way we have and treated every enterprise just like a user, right? Like, oh yeah, you're at Shell. Okay, great. You're at Shell. You should use the same feedback tools as everyone else, because we're listening to those already, and your company shouldn't affect the way you use this, right? The way you use this should be universal across all companies like you. And so I think that's been a big reason to why we've really tried to keep those feedback mechanisms in that way.
Yeah, and it really makes sense from a tool set like this, because this is business oriented. Like you said, it's not IT people who are using and discovering these. It's people going to it's people who are doing these business processes every day. They're driving them insane, and they're like, oh, I can automate this. Thank God I can automate this. Like, that's what's kind of happened with me, is like the IT department where I'm like, hey, what are you guys doing? That's so cool. Other regions would like to use that too. And so I'm kind of building the internal framework for how to do that and helping them like document literally everything. You've seen my OneNote, so I've documented literally everything we do.
Impressive.
Yeah,
it's impressive OneNote. If you haven't seen his OneNote, you should ask him to see it.
Yeah, so guys, well, just check out the show notes, msft.today or medium.com/msft.today, and you'll see all our show notes and the things we're discussing here, including links and those sorts of things. Kind of give it, we've kind of discussed a few of the things about what people are using Flow for, so I kind of have a head scratcher for you maybe. What is the most unique way you've seen someone use Flow, whether it's...
Okay, I got two of them. So one, there's a Flow MVP named Jon Liu, and if you want to be an expert at Flow, make sure you follow Jon Liu. The guy is a Flow genius. We call him the Flow Ninja. He has hacked Flow apart and documented its API and created tools around it. He's a genius. Anyways, Jon Liu connected Flow to Minecraft and was actually executing all sorts of things inside of Minecraft from a Flow. Like walk forward, create a cake, place a cake, do this, do that. And he had a flow that sent this character through these actions inside of Minecraft, which I thought was awesome. Does it have any real practical use in the world? No. But is it awesome? Yes. Another one that I think like really complex and crazy, my boss, Steven Siciliano, the GPM of Flow, created a flow that goes and actually monitors our ideas for him. We've been talking about that ideas for him. This flow goes and monitors that ideas for them and checks the statuses of all of the items. And it dynamically creates a web page with a calendar that lays out when these items will be completed based on the date when they were marked planned or under review or all that. It automatically assigns a time frame to them, dynamically generates a web page, and displays those items in calendar form. All in, like, one flow does that. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I don't know anyone else that's built a crazy flow like that. But that's always the one that I bring out when people ask me, what's the craziest flow you've seen? Because it literally makes the web page. The flow dynamically generates a web page, which I'm just like, how the hell do you even do that?
Yeah, so as for people that don't know, you can tie in scripts, like Python creation script or something like that can go and create based off the return results from the flows, whether it's pulling the data from a data source like a database and or a SharePoint list and or a JSON file. It's really cool to see the things that people are doing. And so looking at like the Python, that's the cool things we've talked about Microsoft democratizing, and the power of Python, I think, is going to just take every Microsoft product, especially all the Office 365 connected products, and just basically make them anything you want it to be and as complex as you want it to be. And it's cool to hear those things. And like whenever you're talking about it, I'm thinking like, how does he do that? Does he do this? Does he get the XML and like do that? Like, it's cool to like try to reverse engineer. You start thinking like a programmer, and you're not a programmer. It's like, just because you're like, he did that. And with the Minecraft thing, that's really cool. It's like you can build a computer inside of Minecraft, and like while it doesn't have any practical functionality, the process of doing it has tremendous, can improve things tremendously, right? Whether it's knowledge sharing or
just that API and learning how to interact with that API and what does what inside of that and what can flow do and not, and all that stuff is super valuable learning.
I wanted to have you on just because I know the power of Twitter. I always reach out to the subject matter experts, right? Whenever I have an issue, I reach out to the people. If I have a PowerShell issue, I reach out to Jeffrey Snover. If I have a SysInternals issue, it's Mark Rasinovich. And you guys are just at a whole other level. I don't know if you guys have on the ball more than most teams. And I think it's because, like you said, you've built the tool set and you're kind of just winging it how to improve it based upon the user feedback, which is, if you haven't used Flow, regardless of what you do in your business, whether you're a teacher, whether you're accounting, whether you're a lawyer, whether anything like that, like go think of the things you do in your workflows every day or every week or every month that you wish were automated. And I bet someone's probably built a template pretty close to it, and or the ability for you to just spend a couple of days, during your lunchtime, it's like a week of lunchtimes, and just give it a shot. Once you build that initial flow, it sells itself.
Totally. I think if you do want to one-up Steven, let me know, because I'd love to see a better flow than that. I'd love to add some new crazy thing to my story list here.
Yeah, I just thinking about the cool things you can do, like the bot framework, or just from the AI perspective. I'm looking way down, because I'm not sure if you've listened to all the previous podcasts, but I'm kind of trying to give people, like, things are changing. Over the next 10 to 20 years, you're not going to have a 9-to-5 job anymore, and you're not going to have a 40-year career or 30-year career. You're going to have to continue to adapt and evolve and learn these tools to separate yourselves because of automation, because of AI. And the more you know about that, regardless of what part of the business you're in or what you do, the better prepared you'll be. And you'll be better able to prepare the people you care about. And since Microsoft is empowering people, you don't need to be a developer. You don't really have any excuses, is what I'm trying to get across, So.
And I think actually that's where I come in. I think that's why I've had great success in this position, because I am just a normal user, right? I was just a business user before I came to Flow. I had no idea how to build automation. I didn't know what JSON was. I had no idea what XML was. I didn't know how to make an HTTP call. I didn't know what a switch case or conditional logic meant, right? I knew nothing about this realm. But in the last couple years working with Flow, I can make amazing solutions, right? I've built a solution that I can take a picture, send that picture up to the Azure cloud in a blob storage, run that picture through cognitive services to tell me if it's a hot dog or not a hot dog, because I built a visual model tagging hot dogs, training it what hot dogs were. And so then after I did that, now I take a picture and it knows, oh, that's a hot dog. I'm 80% sure. Oh, that's not a hot dog. I'm 90% sure. Right? And like, I'm not a coder. I've never coded a thing in my life. I've never even scripted. I can't even do PowerShell. And I can build a solution with the power of Azure Cognitive Services using Flow. Right? And so you're right. Things are changing. We are democratizing and we are building tool sets that more people have access to and can use. And so I think we're at the forefront of it. I would like to think that we're actually leading in this environment, this low code, no code charge. Like, I think we're a leader, and it's something that we're not talking enough about. We're not sharing our thought leadership enough. But I think that you hit the nail on the head. Automation is coming, and AI is coming, and machine learning is coming. And the more you know, the more you'll get ahead. And I think that a great jump-off point for those of us that aren't coders, that aren't programmers, that don't have a history in this is Flow, because it allows you to connect to so many of those services and just use them like Legos.
Yeah, and so I didn't know I was talking to Jin Yang with your hot dog facial recognition from Silicon Valley. For those people don't know, Silicon Valley, one of the guys creates a hot dog recognition software. So it's pretty cool you did that with Flow. That's a cool thing. So, going back into learning things, so like I said, your YouTube channel, so I'm going to have all the links in the show notes, folks. How do you see, or how would you recommend a novice user to get started?
So there's a couple of things. So I obviously, like pimping my own stuff, I made a video, the Microsoft Flow introduction. It's 20 minutes long. It just introduces you to what everything is. It takes you through the whole portal. Here's where we build a flow. Here's where we get support. Here's the community. Here are templates. What is all this stuff? What does it mean? Just you and me, 20 minutes, general overview. From there, I have another video called Build Your First Flow. I had an intern from Microsoft come and build her first flow, and we just made a video about it. So that, she was at that beginner standpoint. She had no idea how to use Flow. And so I really tried to give you, the beginner, that perspective, right? She hasn't touched it. You haven't touched it. She made her first one. You can follow along and make your first one. There's also an edX course. You mentioned earlier how Microsoft gives away their edX courses. There's an edX course on Power Apps and Flow. It's a little more Power Apps heavy than Flow heavy. So if you want to learn some of both, that's a good option. But there's only a few Flow sections there. There's also a new tool called Microsoft Learn. It's docs.microsoft.com/learn. And there's some Microsoft Flow, what do they call them? Not trails, but modules. There's some modules for Flow in there. I think 3 or 4 of them. That's another great place to get started. Also, I'll send you a list. I created a resource guide. It's aka.ms/flow-resources. I'll send that to Brad so you can link it. What that is it's just a getting started guide. It has information broken up by beginner, intermediate, advanced, admin. I use SharePoint. I use cognitive services. I want to see sessions from Ignite. I want to follow all the local experts and MVPs. All that information is there. And so that's a really good jump off point that links to a lot of the other stuff as well. But I'd say if you're going to pick any one thing, go ahead and check out my YouTube page. I think I probably have the gentlest introduction material there.
Yeah, and I will definitely agree with that, because that is like, I think what I first came across was when you first introduced the business process flows. And then I went back and watched your other videos, and it is his videos, he does introduce them at a, and a lot of times, especially with technology guys, since you're not a technology guy, we dumb things down. It can be kind of a condescending tone. Your videos are awesome, and plus you also have some other more fun things that you do on your channel as well. It's a great channel. I highly recommend it. We'll have links in the show notes for that, guys, and then also you can find Jon on Twitter for that. And then also bringing back the templates. In the templates, they actually have the Flow templates. They have getting started templates as well. And so Microsoft Virtual Academy is going bye-bye, so that's where the docs.microsoft.com/learn is coming in, the new modules and everything. So I did see on Twitter you're looking for a home to create a Flow series. Have you made any headway in that?
So I have found, I'm doing my Flow series, but what I'm really looking for is the community to start one. So there's like these couple of Power App shows that have sprung up, right? Like Power Addicts and Power and Apps and And then there's a couple others I can't remember the name of, but like there's a lot of these Power Apps shows and things happening. And I want that for Flow, right? I want to have a Flow show. I want to have a Power and Flow or whatever, right? Like I need people besides me to take the initiative and make something great and make something regular. And I welcome it, right? Like I know that I'm out there and I'm doing all this material, but if you want to too, whoever you might be, I'm not threatened by that. I actually welcome that and would love to help promote that, because it means that it's what I'm doing is working, right? If I'm evangelizing and it makes you also want to evangelize, what I'm doing is working. If I'm evangelizing and you guys are all like, that's great, we love taking in what Jon's doing, I'm doing fine, but I'm not doing what I need to be doing. And so I am still looking at, and so there is one show that now I've spoken to a couple of people. They've committed to starting it. So there is, it's called the Flow Pro Show. That will be coming out in the near future. That's actually going to be run by two full MVPs, Daniel Laskowitz and Sandy Ucia. So if you guys want to be a part of that, reach out to them. They would love your help. But outside of that, if you want to start something else, Flow, please do. And I'm happy to talk to you and help you get that started and help you get that promoted and whatever it is that you might need help with in that arena, I am here for you. Thanks for calling that out, actually. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and so I'll take that a one step further. So if there's anybody who out there is really passionate about Flow and wants to create something, I'm here. I can help you as well. Get you set up, get you up and running from the technical side, where it's creating a podcast or creating YouTube videos or doing screencasts and things like that. If you don't have any idea how to do that and you need someone and some guidance from that, I'm more than happy as well. Like we've already discussed, we both like hearing our voice, so maybe you'll have one of us, both of us on the show. Like, is this one of those things? It is, like, I think it is. It goes to when and the Dark Knight, and he goes, now where to? When he's talking to Jim Gordon, right? So it's literally. Yeah. That's the evangelist. Once the ball is rolling, I think it's great that we can get some awesome things. And if you'll shoot me the notes and the details on the Flow Pros coming up, I'll be sure to plug that as well. Did you have anything about Flow or anything else that you wanted to plug or let people know about? Or
I think there is one thing that we should call out. I think there's some licensing changes coming up, and there's a lot of questions around that. And so I just want to put out a clarification that, yes, the HTTP connector is being removed from the Office seeded license and will move to a P1 license. Now, when I first released that statement, the way that P1s used to be processed was that the maker needed P1 and all of the users could use their Office entitlements. The way that license checking happens is also changing. And so what that means is every user who interacts with that premium Flow will need a P1 license. And so you've heard it here first on the podcast before the official blog statement comes out next week. All users will require a P1 to use HTTP.
And that kind of goes in line with the business process flows, right? Everybody who accesses those process flows also need to have that business process flow licensing tier at the Dynamics level too, correct?
So not at the Dynamics level. You can get by with just the Flow 1 level. The F2, Flow 2 level. So that's the Dynamics plan is very expensive. That's like $250 per user per month. If you don't need Dynamics CRM and you just want to use CDS and business process flows, you can get our F2 plan at $15 per month per user, which is far cheaper than $250 per month per user.
That's good to know, because that's been there's definitely things we can use business process flows within the company, but that $37 bump for the Dynamics level for anybody who touched it was basically a non-starter. So that's awesome. I'm definitely gonna be able to recrunch those numbers for myself personally, just to see if we can make the business process flows. At least, it's one of those things, like, I think once you get the foot in the door and you show them all the money you can save, it kind of sells itself. And so
absolutely. It becomes a point where you're like, oh, why would I ever be concerned with $15 a month?
Yeah, exactly. And that, before we end there, like, also for the folks that don't know, Visio, I think it's the Visio 2 level. You can actually design your flows within Visio at that level. I actually have that level. I haven't been able to dive into that as much as I'd like to, but yeah, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, that's a brand new experience. It's a V1. You can design your flows in Visio and assign them connectors and then export that diagram into Flow, and it will basically then create that flow for you, which you can then just plug your connections into. We are working on a V2 to go the other way, where when I build a flow in Flow, I can then export it to a Visio mapped diagram. And so that's coming in the future. We're working on that right now.
That would be amazing, just from an architectural perspective, because as we discussed, I'm a documentation crazy guy, so I like knowing exactly where anything can fail. That's awesome that would be there. But I'm going to give you an idea for your video channel. Do that Visio design and then pop it in and design that, because I haven't had a chance to I got the license bump and then just been sidetracked with working on the actual flows that I'm trying to get done. And so that'd be really cool, I think, to show people that.
Well, and so I'm going to be totally honest with you. I don't have a Visio license, so I'm trying to acquire one so I can do a video on it. I'm actually trying to work on that, but apparently I need to pay $15 a month for a Visio Plan 2 license. I'm like, I'm not paying. I work at Microsoft. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it sounds like you just need to get an MSDN license for yourself.
I do.
Yeah. It's just, I could talk about this stuff all day, and I know you've got a busy schedule. Would you like to tell anybody why you're going next week, where you're going next week?
Yeah, so next week I'm going to the Power Platform user group in the UK. I am also going to visit Heathrow Airport while I'm there, and then I'm going to hang out with a bunch of the SharePoint, Flow, Power Apps, Office 365 community guys. There's some debaucherous evening planned for me already, which I'm extremely excited about.
That sounds amazing. Are you have any plans to see a soccer match while you're there?
You know, I'm not a huge soccer fan. I don't understand how you can run around a field for 40 minutes, score no points, and that's exciting somehow.
I'm a huge soccer fan. I'm a Chelsea fan, which is a London-based team, but it is one of those things, once you go there, it just makes sense. It just does. And being in Seattle, have you been to a Sounders game? Like,
I never have. My only experience with soccer is like my daughter's soccer game. She plays soccer. I like those. That's fun, but that's just because it's my kid. When it's a bunch of strangers running around like 10 miles, it just becomes less exciting. So I don't know. There's no contact. There's no violence. I like hockey. I like football. I need violence in my sports, I guess.
There's some violence. There's some. Go to a Timbers Sounders game, and then you'll see the violence. Like, those two teams are literal enemies. So
we should go to a game. We should make it a thing to go to a game.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's a great experience. Like, just in London, the soccer hooligans are just a whole other level. So that's my thing. It's like, you're gonna have debauchery, go all the way, you know. So that's awesome. So guys, you heard it. If you're in London next week, look him up. Follow Jon on Twitter. And again, you can find him everywhere. I think you're the only one with that name, right? So, but on Twitter,
I'm really in the first 3 pages of everything. If you search my name, I'm the only one.
Which is JonLevesque.com, and then at Twitter, and then YouTube channel, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. Again, check the show notes, or follow me on Twitter, Brad Grew, or MSFT Today on Twitter, msfttoday.website. We'll have all the show notes, and I have really detailed show notes with all the stuff we've talked about, and he owes me some things. I do have the Flow resources link. I already got that in there. Some of the licensing changes, but anything else you want to send my way to add to the show note and get it out in the announcements, and let me know whenever the licensing changes out, and I can spread that as well. Thank you so much for being here. I doubt this will be our last time to talk about this, because we both like hearing our voices, and we both like talking about Flow. And good luck and safe travels this next week. And thank you so much. And pass my thanks to the team on creating an amazing tool set and empowering the users and being responsive on Twitter, because it saves my day so many times that I can just go hit someone up on Twitter and they respond within 30 minutes, and I don't have to wait for 2 days for someone to hit me up on the forum. So thanks so much. Thank you again, and I appreciate you for rescheduling, and have a good one.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here. Really appreciate all the great questions and getting to hang out with you. And it's just an honor to be on your show as a community member that's passionate about Flow. I love it. Thank you for doing all that you do. And thanks for all the listeners for coming along. Go check out Flow. Go follow Brad and MSFT Today. Me too, if you have some time. Talk to you guys later.
And there you have it, Microsoft fans. Thank you again to Jon Levesque being part of the podcast for talking to us about Flow. I do want to apologize to Jon and to the listeners. As I listened back when I edited this, I was rambling on. I hope you could hear from the enthusiasm of my voice and don't hold it against me. I'm very, very, very stoked to talk about Flow. So I get a little over anxious, a little overzealous. My ADD goes a little overboard. And so that's why I was just rambling on at times. But thank you, Jon, for his patience. But I hope you were still able to get some great information out of it. I really do appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I hope that you will do the following. 1, follow Jon Levesque each and everywhere you see him. And this includes the Microsoft Flow Twitter, Jon Levesque on Twitter, jonlevesque.com, Jon's YouTube channel, etc., etc., etc. 2, please tell a friend about Microsoft Today. Whether they're a technology enthusiast, education enthusiast, learning enthusiast, please tell someone this week about Microsoft Today. 3, please check out the show notes. I give a ton of information within the show notes at msft.today/podcasts. And 4th and finally, take a lunch hour, sit down with Microsoft Flow, and see how it may be able to help you with your workday, with your school day, with your personal life. That would be the perfect opportunity to take a look at Jon's intro to Microsoft Flow on his YouTube channel. I have no doubt that if you all take a little bit of time and look at Microsoft Flow, it can help streamline your life like it is helping streamline business processes and business procedures all across the country and all across the world. Until next time, guys, spiral out. Keep going.
From your lawn